Tonight, we are beginning to see a clearer picture of the devastating impacts this pandemic is having on our economy. More than 85,000 Americans are now infected with the virus, more than any other country in the world, and nearly 1,300 people have died.
The jobless numbers are also skyrocketing. Nearly 3.3 million workers in the U.S. are filing for unemployment.
KCAL 9 political reporter Randy Page is now live with a closer look at those numbers. Randy?
Hi, Sharon Wan. You know, when you think about it, we've been talking for weeks about these two sometimes competing and devastating impacts of the coronavirus, impacts on health and on the economy. When you shut people down and keep them in their homes, you hurt the economy. When you open it up, you spread the virus. Well, today we saw major headlines involving both of these metrics. On a day when the United States became the country with the most confirmed coronavirus cases on the planet, President Trump said he is preparing to open up parts of the country and send people back to work.
We're going to be talking about dates. We're going to be talking with a lot of great professionals. But this is a country that was built on getting it done. And our people want to go back to work. I'm hearing it loud and clear from everybody.
Dr. Deborah Birx, the White House coronavirus response coordinator, said 19 states have less than 200 cases.
So that's almost 40% of the country with extraordinarily low numbers. These 19 states are doing still active containment. They're at 200 cases despite the fact that they've been measuring them over the last 3 to 4 weeks.
In a letter to the nation's governors, President Trump said he will categorize counties as high risk, medium risk, or low risk in an effort to encourage local leaders to reopen their businesses.
We're going to have a lot more information early next week, and we'll be reporting that back. But I just want to leave it with you. We have to go back. This is the United States of America. They don't want to sit around and wait. I think it's going to happen pretty quickly.
But the president is getting pushback from political leaders.
I'm concerned about the desire of the president to ignore potentially the science, to try to do something that I know he's, has a desire to do.
It won't happen unless we respect science, science, science. And for those who say we choose prayer over science, I say science is an answer to our prayers.
And the nation's leading expert in infectious diseases, Dr. Anthony Fauci, is urging caution.
You don't make the timeline. The virus makes the timeline.
Neurosurgeon and CNN chief medical correspondent Sanjay Gupta says the number of coronavirus cases in the United States has grown 10 times over the past week.
To look at those numbers and to at the same time say, well, there must be areas of the country where, they're safe enough, there's low enough case count to go ahead and reopen them. I mean, I don't think any public health official would actually do that based on the data.
The president has said he believes the media is creating a panic and that to many, the virus is not a serious health threat.
And remember that people that have it, many people have it. I just spoke to 2 people. They had it. They never went to a doctor. They had it, absolutely had it, but they never went to a doctor. They never went to anything. They didn't report it. You have thousands and hundreds of thousands of cases like that.
The president was not asked if the hundreds of thousands of infected people he's talking about who've never reported their illnesses could be infecting people all over the country without health officials knowing about it.
But it's a lot of jobs.
Today, the president confronted another disastrous side effect of the coronavirus, unemployment. There were 3.28 million unemployment claims last week, the highest number of initial jobless claims in history. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said these numbers are only a temporary setback. In the wake of a $2.2 trillion rescue package, the president is expected to sign into law next week.
I just think these numbers right now are not relevant, and whether they're bigger or smaller in the short term, obviously there are people who have jobless claims. And again, the good thing about this bill is the president is protecting those people.
Tonight, sources tell CBS News President Trump is frustrated that a tanking economy impacted by millions of Americans out of work may be hurting his chances for re-election.
But I think we'll come back very strong. The sooner we get back to work, every day that we stay out, it gets harder to bring it back very quickly.
So these important questions now, how can the nation get this back together? That is, how is it that we can make sure to get enough people out of their workplace, in their homes, keeping themselves safe from the virus, but also let others go into the workplace to keep the economy going. This push and pull has been going on for weeks. It is beginning to come to a head. We should learn a lot more about it on Monday, because that's when the initial 15-day lockdown is over. Let's go back to you.
Okay, we shall see. Randy, thank you.